Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Ellen Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. For the last year and a half or so, we've been featuring each fille du roi or king's daughter, getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. We're on number 187. We've come a long way. We've got a long way to go. Before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. We have subscribe, like, notify. All of that helps get the word out. And then we also have Patreon. We have, which is a monthly contribution. We have Coffee, which is kind of an on-the-spot contribution. And then we have the super thanks that YouTube has allowed me to do because I have now reached over 1,000 subscribers. And thank you very much. We will get to know our fille du roi in a moment. So for episode 187, we are examining Catherine Fourrier. And she is a viewer. I looked in my files and I have a couple of clients, and I also have a colleague of mine who we worked on a library project. She knows who she is. And my best friend's daughter is also, this is also her great grandmother. So let's get to know Catherine a little bit better. So Catherine was born in 1651 in Paris. Her parents were Claude Fourrier and Marie Fenetier. She was baptized in the Church of Saint-Sulpice, which is located on the east side of Place Saint-Sulpice in the Latin Quarter of the 6th arrondissement. Let's talk about the Saint-Sulpice church. The construction of this present building began in 1646. Check it out. She's born 1651. So that is pretty amazing that she was born right when it was first built. In the 6th arrondissement of Paris, it's actually called by locals, or another name for it is Le Luxembourg, which is an extremely cultural and educational area of Paris. And what we know about the Luxembourg is that it's the seat of the Senate, and its garden is situated on the rive gauche of the River Seine. It includes such world-famous educational institutions such as, the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts and the Institut, and some of the amazing monuments are there as well. And so we absolutely know that this particular arrondissement was renowned for that kind of thinking and philosophy that, François Séguin and Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir all kind of hung out here. So it's a kind of a spot for the French intelligentsia, if you know. It's one of the most fashionable, and it's also one of the richest areas of France as well, of Paris. So that's where she's coming from. Let's have a look at where she's going. So she would actually come to Canada after her father's death. She would sail on La Nouvelle France on July 31st, 1670, indicating the fact that we don't know any information about a dowry. She did not receive the king's gift that we know of. Tells us that perhaps she had fallen, or family had fallen on hard times, perhaps. She would actually stay at the famous Maison Saint-Gabriel, of which Marguerite Bourgeois was the founder. And we know that Marguerite and her history are kind of intertwined with Montreal. She came to New France during the Grand Recru in 1653 at the invitation of Paul de Chaumette, Sœur de Maisonneuve. She helped organize and found the Notre Dame Congregation, of which you see the church. She also established a schoolhouse, which in turn became the first public school in Montreal. Around 1663, she would purchase a farm on Pointe Saint Charles, and this farm would in turn become the place, the Maison Saint Gabriel, where the filles du roi were housed. And so they would not only be housed here, but they would receive education on how to run a household, how to cook, how to sew, anything that would help them live a better life here in this new, exciting, but very terrifying, I'm sure, to many of them, world. So the groom that would select her and who she would select, his name was Martin Mercadier de La Haye, and he was born in 1645 in Bruxelles in France. His parents were Georges Mercadet and Charlotte Fourrier. And he was born in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine region and in the Vienne department. His church, Saint Pierre de Bruxelles, dates from the 13th century. There are less than 1,000 people that live in this mostly rural and agricultural area. Catherine and Mathurin would marry in Montreal on October 14th, 1670, about a couple months after she arrived. He would, of course, settle in Montreal. Let's talk a little bit about Montreal. This wonderful city that would become Montreal started off as Ville-Marie by the founder, Paul de Chaumery, Sœur de Maisonneuve, and was essentially a missionary center in May of 1642. The colony would not thrive, and it was on the verge of extinction when Chaumery decided to return to France to recruit 100 settlers, which would be known as the Grand Recrues. From this small group would evolve the Notre Dame congregation from Sister Marguerite Bourgeois. When Montreal was founded, the new colonists were rapidly confronted by a fearsome enemy, the Iroquois. Unfortunately, there was no regular army on Montreal soil until 1665 when the Gagne regiment landed here. In the meantime, militias capable of resisting Iroquois attacks were set up. On January 27, 1663, Chaumery de Maisonneuve created the Saint-Famille militia to protect Ville-Marie and its inhabitants. It was made up of about 139 volunteers, divided into 20 squads. A corporal was elected by the members of each squad. So each little squad had its own little troop and troops. And so they really did begin protecting themselves and their families. So they would have two children. Elizabeth would die in infancy. Geneviève would marry René Cholet, but did not have any children before her own early death at 26. So Mathurin would die sometime between March and May of 1672. As is so often the case, when one man dies in New France, another arrives. Groom number 2, his name was Jean Bouquet, who was born 1646 in Tonat, in France. His parents were Jean Bouquet and Isabelle Hilaret. This area of France, which is a very interesting area, it's from the Nouvelle-Aquitaine that we go to many, many times, but look at where the département Lot-et-Garonne, there's a whole new département, and Tonat was until the early 2000s the tobacco capital of France, and it remains an agricultural center. The church where Jean would have been baptized is Notre Dame, and that is his church. Jean would come to New France, and he's listed in the 1666 census at Trois-Rivières, and he is listed as an arquebusier, which is a gunsmith. Very, very important profession. So the marriage would take place October 14th, 1670, again about 2 months after she arrived. The family would settle at Varennes, which is now an off-island suburb of Montreal, and it's approximately about 15 miles from downtown. The population as of 2011 was about 20,000. The history of Varennes starts with the arrival of the Régiment des Carignan-Salières in New France. René Gauthier, Sœur de Varennes, was given 3 concessions by the intendant Jean Talon in 1672. He was given Le Tremblay, La Gabelle, and Varennes. Jacques Gagne, one of his sons, was the second seigneur of Varennes. 5 seigneuries later composed the Varennes parish. They were the Seigneurie du Cap de Varennes, and I say these so that you will know de Ile Sainte-Thérèse, de Grand Maison, du Cap de Trinité, and Cap Saint-Michel. They would eventually become separate, but they were actually together at that point. The town was captured by the British in 1760 during the Montreal campaign, and it was part of the province of Quebec, then of Lower Canada, before it was returned back again to Quebec in 1867. So it's got a lot of history there. In 1680, the family moves to Île Sainte-Thérèse, which is an island, as you can clearly see, in the St. Lawrence. It remained largely uninhabited until the arrival of until the Carignan-Salière soldiers, and then gradually, the seigneury was given to Duguay de Boisbriand in 1672, and over time, people began inhabiting this island and really exploring its richness. And certainly the families, the early pioneers who settled here were part of that amazing stock of people who can lay claim to being among the first. And this family, the Bouquet, are among them. So the 1681 census actually finds them at Île Sainte-Thérèse. And we have Jean Bouquet, arquebusier, Catherine Fourrier, his children, Geneviève, Jean, Catherine, Danielle, Pierre, Claude. They have 2 guns, and 3 alpha, so about an acre and a half, okay, at this time. They had just settled there. So the family would end up having 11 children. We have first Jean-Baptiste, who would marry Louise Lucie and have 12 children, all of whom would make it. Catherine would marry Jean Venn and have 1 child, who made it to adulthood. Daniel would die at age 7. Pierre would marry Marie Benny and have 7 children, all of whom made it. Claude would die at age 4. Marie would marry Marielle Audin and have 1 child, who made it to adulthood. Barbe would marry 3 times, but did not have any children. Jeanne would marry Albert Beaune and have 1 child. Toussaint, we do not have any information on. Françoise married Joseph Cousson and had 4 children, all of whom made it. And Anne-Catherine married Nicolas Ledoux, but did not have any children. And tragically, another second sudden death would befall our wonderful Catherine. Sometime between 1695 and 1698, Jean would pass away. So François Martin de Langevin was born in 1661, so was very much younger than Catherine. He was born at La Flèche in France, so you can see Pays de la Loire and the Département de Sarthe. That's the church where he would have been baptized, and that is the area that is La Flèche today. He had been married to Catherine Goyer and had 9 children, so he was a widower. So on October 14, 1670, Catherine married a 3rd time. So Catherine goes to another place now and becomes another pioneer. Repentigny was founded in 1670 by Jean-Baptiste Le Gardeur, son of Seigneur Pierre Le Gardeur. By 1677, there were only 30 inhabitants there. And you can see how slowly it grew. It was very small, and it was only in 2002 when Repentigny merged with the city of Le Gardeur, and then the population doubled in size. The area doubled in size, and the population grew by 70%. So now we have a true city. I have provided a link for you to have a look so you can see more of information about Repentigny. François would pass away sometime after 1713. We do not have a death record. So they probably had about 13, 14 years of marriage. Now, Catherine would pass away, and this is her death record, on October 21st, 1726, at the remarkable age of 75. Here's some further research. I want to encourage you to get Les Filles du Roi, that is from the Société d'Histoire des Filles du Roi. Absolutely fascinating read. It is French, but just amazing read. And this one is focused on the pioneers of Varennes and Verchères. So obviously Catherine is among them. And then the women of Ville Marie just gives you that context of like where they were. And even though it may not discuss Catherine per se, I actually don't remember if it talks about Catherine. You need to read that too, just to get a flavor of what was going on around Montreal in that. And that book is written by Sue McNally, and just absolutely fabulous read, and I've posted the link to Amazon for you to purchase it. So here are some of the resources that I use and I recommend. La Société des Filles du Roi, I'm a member and the membership chairperson. So have a look at that. Go on the website. Maybe it's something you want to join. Absolutely wonderful resources there. We have the Quebec Genealogical E-Society. That is a wonderful society as well with lots of links. Nos Origines. WikiTree, which is an amazing resource of information. And they have a Filles du Roi section. So you might want to explore that. Filles du Roi Descendants is the Facebook group that is just amazing in terms of cousin, just meeting all the cousins that you possibly could have. And Généalogie Québec, absolutely monthly subscription that I treasure. And then we have a new edition, La Société d'Histoire des Filles du Roi. I posted all the links for you so that you can explore to your heart's content. So now we complete episode 187, Catherine Fourrier. What an amazing woman. 3 husbands. And all of the places that she went and became a pioneer at. We have Varennes, we have Ile Sainte-Thérèse, we have Repentigny, just an amazing woman who just kind of every time restarted her life. She would have by 1729 76 descendants. And I'm really thrilled that this was a remarkable woman and a woman of substance, a woman who clearly kept going no matter what would occur. She persevered and had the pleasure of having a long life. And we thank her for her contribution. We bless her memory. And we are grateful she came to our shores. Thank you, Catherine. Until I see you on episode 188, au revoir.